I'm going to share with you a story of a man who has more plot twists and curveballs than I've ever seen in my life. This is the story of Lou Pearlman. Lou was born in 1954 in Queens, New York City. He was raised in a middle-class family and he was fascinated by aviation. Now, it's worth pointing out that Lou was first cousin of famous musician Art Garfunkel, who's half of the tandem of Simon and Garfunkel. So from a young age, he had an interest in entertainment. In his early teen years in the 1980s, he had many entrepreneurial ventures. He started a helicopter taxi service around NYC. How he was able to get a hold of helicopters and how he was able to convince people as a teenager to get in his helicopters is even more perplexing. But what it tells me is that from a young age, he has a lot of charisma to convince people to do things, because essentially he's just a helicopter middleman. Yes, helicopters are cool, but to Lou Pearlman, helicopters aren't his thing. Is it planes? No. There's one thing that he likes more than either of those: blimps. See, Lou Pearlman thought that, well, billboards are cool, but if you really want to get people's attention, if you really want to reach an audience, you need to advertise on a blimp. When I first heard that, I said, well, that's stupid. Why don't you just get a billboard? But the more I think about it, it actually has its merits, because if you see a blimp, odds are you're probably gonna look at it. Pearlman would reach a deal with Jordak Jeans, and he promised blimp advertising. Now, the only problem at this point is Lou Pearlman didn't have a blimp, so he's going and advertising it without actually owning it. So he hastily had a blimp built. Now, you could probably imagine that this blimp that was hastily built in order to advertise probably wasn't built with the best quality. And for those of you out there who put your faith in Lou, that he put together a quality blimp, I'm sorry to disappoint you, it crashed on its first flight. The Guardian, a pretty popular news source, alleges that Lou Pearlman's blimp accident wasn't an accident at all, rather a carefully orchestrated fraud. They allege that Pearlman took out a $3 million insurance policy on a blimp that was substandard and had numerous functional and safety problems. Sure enough, on the blimp's first flight, it would crash when the tail end of the blimp struck some trees, causing the nose of the blimp to dive, strike the ground, boom. There were 2 people on the blimp when it crashed. Neither one was injured. From what it says here, it sounds more like pilot error than malfunction. Irregardless, Lou Pearlman did get his insurance payout for millions of dollars, and he would use that to finance other ventures. In 1991, Lou would move to Orlando, Florida, and he launched Airship International. He secured contracts with MetLife, with SeaWorld. He even took this company public, and stock inflated up to $6 per share. Unfortunately, like with his blimp business, Lou Pearlman's air vehicles just don't stay in the air, because he had multiple crashes that ultimately led to bad PR, collapsed his stock. The company would eventually close just as soon as it began. He would promote a few other companies as well. One of them is Transcontinental Airlines, another airline company like the other 2 that he tried. But around this time, he realized something else. In the early 1990s, there was this very popular group called New Kids on the Block. New Kids on the Block made $1 billion in revenue. And when he saw a Billy, he said, no, screw aviation, screw these blimps. The opportunity is in boy bands. So in 1992, he would found Transcontinental Records. Don't get that confused with Transcontinental Airlines. This is Transcontinental Records, but keep those names in mind, guys, because they come up later. He poured in almost $3 million for talent searches and promotion. I know what you're thinking. This dude's just throwing money to try to create a boy band. That doesn't sound very professional. It's probably not going to work. Well, actually, it did. He would recruit AJ McLean, Brian Luttrell, Nick Carter, Howie Doro, and Kevin Richardson, who would become the 5 boys in the Backstreet Boys, one of the largest boy bands ever. They would have their first breakout hit called Quit Playing Games With My Heart, a #1 hit in 1997, and before you knew it, they were a major hit in the US. Lou Pearlman saw the massive success that the Backstreet Boys were having, but he said, well, this isn't enough. We need to double down. So he decided to create the Pepsi to Coke, the Sierra Mist to Sprite, the Mr. Pibb to Dr. Pepper. He goes and finds Chris Kirkpatrick, Justin Timberlake, JC Chazez, and creates NSYNC. So not only did he create 1 major successful boy band, he created 2. And NSYNC would go on to sell over 70 million records. And by the late 1990s, Lou Pearlman had built a mini pop empire. Pearlman would also try other things, such as solo acts like Aaron Carter and girl groups like Innocence, who at the time featured Britney Spears, but those never took off anywhere. He realized everything is based on the boy bands. By 1997, the money is running in hot. But you know who the money's not running to? The artists. So the Backstreet Boys decide, we want out of this contract. They would sue Lou Pearlman in 1997 after they discovered that they had earned just $300,000 for all 5 artists, despite millions of dollars in revenue and a #1 hit. Beyond that, Lou Pearlman positioned himself as a 6th member contractually, so it's actually the Backstreet 6, not the Backstreet 5. So not only was Lou Pearlman taking his fees for management, production, and promotion on the top, out, but he's also taking 1/6 of the earnings as if he's another member of the band. But it definitely shows that Pearlman's not really in it for music, he's not really in it for the artist, he's just in it for himself. The following year in 1998, NSYNC would file the same lawsuit, claiming that they were paid just $35 per day during tours. The band, who sold over $70 million, received $35. For reference, that is less than a factory worker or a Walmart worker. There are some rumors that NSYNC framed their 2000 album called No Strings Attached as a dig at Pearlman, talking about how they wanted to get out. NSYNC, along with the Backstreet Boys, would both win their contracts, and the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC would continue to blow up and become world-renowned successes without Lou Pearlman. I want to take 10 seconds and ask you, please leave a like on the video, subscribe to my channel. I do not put sponsorships in this video out of respect for my audience. I'm going to keep continuing to expose these fake gurus, alpha males, phony balonies like this guy here, but I can't do it without your support. Thank you guys so much. Now back to the video. By the early 2000s, near all of his former acts have sued him. Every major group eventually accused him of either hidden clauses, fake promises, or outright fraud. And almost all of the cases that were filed against him ended up in court victories or settlements favoring the artist, not the manager, which is pretty important because a lot of times courts will stick to legalities. And if you notice a trend like that, especially among artists and managers, there's definitely a common theme that something isn't right. So this led a lot of people to looking into Lou Pearlman, because remember, I said he did some other things. He promoted this thing called Transcontinental Airlines, Transcontinental Records, which was the company that managed NSYNC and the Backstreet Boys, as well as some other parent companies. And it ran all the way until 2006. Pearlman claimed there was steady growth, guaranteed returns, and offered investment to thousands of people. Whenever someone says guaranteed returns, that is a pretty big red flag. And eventually, people would start to complain that, hey, we're not getting our money out of this, which eventually led the authorities to look into Lou Pearlman. The truth is, Lou Pearlman, while he was still affiliated with the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC, probably had a lot of credibility, and allegations from random people probably wouldn't have been taken in the same way. But now that those bands have sued him and accused him of these other things, I think the authorities probably had a bit more urgency to look at these accusations that were presented. Well, once the authorities looked into it, they noticed that there was a lot of issues. There were fake financial statements using a fabricated accounting firm called Cohen & Siegel. Pearlman also claimed there was FDIC insurance and backing from AIG and Lloyd's of London, none of which is true at all. He would raise over $300 to $500 million from 1,500 investors, and get this, 12 banks. So even the banks were getting in on this. So let's analyze the position. He has $300 to $500 million. Well, what did he do with it? He paid off his early investors, he funded his luxurious lifestyle, his jets, his cars, his mansion, and he bankrolled his expensive music industry ventures. Pearlman wanted you to think that his success was because of his music achievements, but in reality, he was able to pay for all these things and look successful on the outside because he's running a Ponzi scheme. In February 2007, the Florida regulators fully exposed the scheme and declared his, quote, employee investment savings account program completely fraudulent. There was over $95 million found missing from the company accounts, which we can reasonably assume Pearlman just stole, but now the walls were closing in. Pearlman's not this famous manager anymore. His reputation is burned. He knows the feds are going to come for him soon, so he's able to go to his office and he shreds everything that he could find. Now look, obviously he's running a Ponzi scheme, but if you're going and shredding all your documents before the authorities come, because you know they're going to come. Have y'all ever thought, like, what if you, I don't know, run a Ponzi scheme, or you kill somebody, you rob somewhere, like, you know the authorities are lurking. They're not arresting you or whatever, but they're talking to you. They're lurking around. Like, just what do you do at that point? Like, I feel like just sitting around or just like watching TV isn't appropriate. However, in January of 2007, 1 month before the Florida regulators exposed this scheme, Lou Pearlman would flee the country. That's right, my boy got on a plane. Wait, I ain't gonna say my boy, I don't know why I said that. This dude got on a plane and he said, I'm out of here. And honestly, if you're gonna run away, this is the right time. You don't wanna wait till they get a warrant and they actually try to arrest you. But here's the problem. He's a recognizable public figure, he's old, and he's fat. So he can't exactly blend in. He was spotted in Panama, which I imagine is probably where he first went to because it was just to get out of the country and it's pretty close. He was spotted in Germany, which probably is a pretty good choice for him to go to given he's white and he could probably try to blend in. Then he went to Israel, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Then he went to Russia, which is probably the best country you could go to in a situation like this as long as you live low key. Remember, I said he had $95 million missing from company accounts, so I'm gonna assume he has millions of dollars at his disposal. You can blend in if you want to. But no, he decided to go, I kid you not, he went to Bali, Indonesia. He went to the fake guru scammer capital of the world. Little does he know, 15 years later, the very place that he went would become full of people just like him. He actually was caught just some 6 months later after a tourist recognized him at the hotel pool. He would eventually be extradited to Guam and then from Guam back to the United States. I just can't get over how stupid it is to go to Indonesia. You don't look like an Indonesian. You're way taller than an Indonesian. You don't speak Indonesian, and you're fat. Indonesians are not fat. You literally stick out like a sore thumb. He would plead guilty to multiple counts, including bank fraud, conspiracy, money laundering, and false bankruptcy statements. Just 2 months later, he would be sentenced to 25 years. The man who built some of the most famous boy bands had his life crash like his blimps. The court ordered him to repay $300 million in restitution and an additional $100 million forfeited for his actions. He didn't actually repay any of that money. I mean, I'm sure he paid a little bit, but he didn't pay anywhere near the full amount. In fact, they were so desperate to get money back, the judge offered a 1-month sentence reduction for every $1 million he helped recover. Even then, very little was reclaimed. While at his sentencing, Pearlman would ask the judge for a very unusual request. He would petition the court to give him a phone and a computer so he could continue to create boy bands in prison. I don't think Lou really understands the point of prison. There's no bigger red flag in the entire arts space than a manager who contacts you from prison. No real artist would even entertain that. No fake artist would even entertain that. Even if an artist somehow said yes, how would Lou even do anything? His reputation is killed. He can't go to meetings because he's behind bars. And perhaps the most underrated key of this whole thing, he would probably get his phone and laptop stolen by another prisoner. Look at Lou Pearlman here. He's not going to be a popular, well, he might be a popular prisoner, if you get what I'm saying, but it's not going to be for the right reasons. He's not going to be able to keep this stuff. It's going to be stolen. But I think you know what happened. The judge said, "Shut your ass up. Get out of my courtroom." He didn't say it like that, but I'm sure that's how he wanted to say it. He would try to stay involved in music behind bars, forming a prison choir. He never had any success. Only 2 years later, in 2010, he would suffer a stroke, which would eventually lead to long-term health complications. And after serving 8 years in prison in August of 2016, he would die. His cause of death? Endocarditis, an infection of the heart lining. I actually find it fitting that someone whose whole life was infected with greed died of an infection in his heart. I don't think he has any real talent. I don't think he has any real passion. I honestly wouldn't even say he had talent in making musical artists because he just threw a bunch of money at it. If you throw money at near any problem, it's gonna go away. It's a sad story of what happens when you allow greed to rule your life. And unfortunately, there's so many people on Instagram nowadays we see that suffer from the same conditions of greed. We can only hope those people will turn their lives around and not also have their hearts infected as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please leave a like on the video. I'll see you guys next time.